Hello and welcome to the Posts About Ghosts podcast. I'm your co-host Chellemo, and with me as always is Aidy. Hi Aidy.
Hello.
We have a very interesting show for you guys this week. We're going to be talking about ghosts and the law. There have been a number of times in history where a court case depended on paranormal evidence of some sort. To start us off with that, Aidy is going to take us back to 1804 London, to a time when a number of people reported being attacked by a spirit.
Yes, so this one is the Hammersmith ghost murder. So, in 1804 in Hammersmith, London, a number of people reported of being attacked by a spirit. It was described as a tall man dressed in white. It was thought to be a ghost of someone who took their own life. I don't know why they would think that, but...
Yeah, must have been some kind of evidence to that effect.
Yeah, but you would think there would be some sign. I mean, do you have a rope around his neck or something? I don't know. It just seems like a weird thing to think of.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a ghost of someone who took their own life. Anyhow, as a result of this, a number of men formed gangs intent on searching the streets for this spectre. Up steps an individual called Francis Smith, who claimed to have seen a man dressed all in white. Now, he challenges the apparition when he sees it, shouting, "Damn you!" I'm not going to try and do a Cockney accent.
Oh, go on.
No, my reputation for name messing up is already put me in the dirt, so I'm not about to...
Well, you have a bit of a blended accent, a dialect anyway.
Yeah, I do, but I'm not doing Cockney. It's not the right words anyway. I can't do it with these words. I can only have a very limited vocabulary in terms of accents, and this doesn't really fit.
We are standing by for any words you want to do Cockney.
But anyway, he said, "Damn you." Well, you can't really do that in a Cockney accent. Anyway, who are you and what are you? It was a strange thing to say. And damn you again. I will shoot you. Can I just say, that's like 0 to 100. He doesn't know who this person is. He doesn't know what the person is. He says, "Damn you," a couple of times and then threatens to shoot them. And then if you think that's bad enough, he then proceeded to open fire.
Well, I tell you what, I have a similar opinion when dealing with any person. You know, I am a recluse. So anytime there's going to be human contact, my brain goes straight to "damn you." So I have a little sympathy.
Yeah, but do you then proceed to open fire and then the bullet strikes the ghost in the jaw and it falls to the ground? Which at this point I'd be like, oh, that's not good, because
not good.
You would generally think that a ghost would not be affected by a
bullet. I'm going to guess it didn't go well.
No, because rather unsurprisingly, it transpired that this was not a ghost, but instead was a bricklayer by the name of Thomas Millwood. His outfit was the clothing that people wore in his profession, apparently. So I guess they wore all white, bricklayers.
That doesn't make sense at all.
I know, like, decorators wear a white overall. Because my uncle was a decorator and he used to have like a white overall that he would, you know, and he'd stick like all these like brushes and stuff on what have you, like pockets and attachments to it. But I didn't think bricklayers would. You'd think they'd I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I guess I wouldn't know. Yeah.
I wouldn't know, and I wasn't around then, believe it or not. So, but anyway, the aforementioned Thomas Millwood died on the spot. So,
as you do.
Well, yeah, when, you know, I mean, it is survivable, but, you know, it's not good. But anyway, yeah, Smith was put on trial for murder. And despite the increased anxiety due to the rumours of there being a ghost, this was actually dismissed as a means of defence, and Smith was found guilty and sentenced to death.
Yeah.
Back then we didn't mess about in this country. Although then we did, because this was then reduced to a year of hard labour. Now, I'm not being funny. How do you go from a death sentence to a year of hard labour?
That's a big jump.
Yeah. I mean, one does actually imply that it's not even a custodial sentence.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I was thinking hard labour. Did they make him become a bricklayer for a year? Because that would be, if you had to carry the bricks around and stuff.
Right.
That would be ironic, and it would be more ironic if then he got shot, people.
I'd like to know what the hard labor was now that you've said that.
Yeah, I would too.
I'm going to do some more digging.
And the weird part, that could have been part of the hard labour. He could have been a grave digger. That would be quite hard labour back then. There were no, it was all done with a shovel.
Any kind of digging, yeah.
So this trial sets a precedent in English law, which this just goes weird for me, in that believing someone was a ghost was not a justifiable reason for killing them. Okay. Two things why I think this is somewhat bizarre, that they needed to be clarified. Because if somebody was a ghost, then they would already be dead.
Well, yeah, you can't kill the already dead.
Yeah. So why did that even need to be set as a precedent?
I have no idea.
And also, just because somebody's dressed in white doesn't mean they're a ghost. My mind does not immediately think that person's a ghost.
Yeah, that's true. The case shows the deadly consequences of this kind of mistake.
Well, yeah. I don't understand it. I don't understand why. First of all, people were saying they were being attacked. Were they being attacked by this guy? Because if he's wearing the outfit of a bricklayer, there's going to be more than one person walking around. At any point, though, by the way, when this guy shouted at him, did he not give the bricklayer an opportunity to respond? Did he literally just say all of those things really quick and then shoot him? Because at some point
you would think the guy would have been talking.
There's something really strange about this story.
Yeah, it is really bizarre.
I thought it was kind of weird and a bit funny at the same time.
Yeah, it was horrific, but for some reason I found it funny as well. That's really bizarre.
I think this Mr. Smith character might be a psycho.
It's quite possible.
Because, like I say, the basis of the story is that the people were being attacked by a spirit. So a tall man dressed in white was going around attacking people. I mean, generally speaking, you would think that somebody might go to punch them back.
Yeah.
Or, attack them back or try and defend themselves.
Yeah.
But, if they've been physically manhandled by this person, then you'd think that's not a ghost, is it? Because, I don't know, it was a very strange story, but one that I thought was kind of one of them oldie day weirdo stories.
There's a lot you can say about people when they get wound up about ghosts and fear. Anyway, next we are going to cross the Atlantic to a modern courtroom where demonic possession was actually argued as a legal defense.
Right.
I am talking about the trial of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson. This case began in 1980 in Brookfield, Connecticut, and it quickly became one of the most unusual criminal cases in modern American legal history. The evidence that led to the trial were tied to the alleged demonic possession of an 11-year-old boy named David Glatzel. Now, according to the boy's family, he began experiencing disturbing visions and violent behavior after visiting a house they believed was haunted. The family sought help from paranormal investigators Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren, who concluded that the boy was possessed by multiple demons. During a series of alleged exorcisms conducted by clergy, Johnson, who was dating the boy's sister, reportedly challenged the spirits, telling them to leave the child alone and enter him instead. Several months later, on February 16, 1981, Johnson became involved in a heated argument with his landlord, Alan Bono, at a small apartment complex where Johnson, his girlfriend, and others worked and lived. Witnesses said the dispute escalated rapidly after a day of drinking, as a lot of things do after a day of drinking. The day of drinking equals bad decisions.
Yeah.
Always. During the confrontation, Johnson attacked Bono with a pocket knife, stabbing him multiple times. Bono died shortly thereafter, and Johnson fled the scene. Later, he was arrested and charged with murder. His defense attorneys attempted to argue that Johnson had been under demonic possession at the time of the killing, making this the first case in the United States where lawyers tried to introduce demonic possession as a legal defense in a homicide trial. Now, this case attracted intense national media attention. I would have been about 11 years old, and I even remember something. I don't remember much because I was 11 years old, but I remember this happening. It attracted a lot of attention, partly because of the involvement of the Warrens.
Yeah.
And the sensational nature of the supernatural claim that he was possessed by the demons. However, the judge in Connecticut court ruled that testimony about demonic possession was not scientifically or legally admissible. And without that defense, the trial focused on the physical evidence and eyewitness testimony surrounding the killing, which pretty much hung him because he would have had to admit that he did it to say that he did it because he was possessed. So once they took out the possession, he was screwed.
Yeah.
In November 1981, Johnson was convicted of first-degree manslaughter rather than murder, and he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. Now, here's another one of converted time because he ultimately served about 5 years before being released for good behavior.
Weird.
Yeah, the case continued to fascinate the public long after the trial, and later it inspired books and documentaries, and the 2021 horror film, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, is based on his story.
Right.
It ensures that the unusual legal attempt to argue demonic possession remains one of the most famous intersections of the paranormal and the courtroom.
Indeed.
So, from the courtroom, wrestling with possessions, to a very different legal battle over a haunted house.
Yes.
Reputation, not specters, would be on trial next.
Indeed.
Aidy, why don't you tell us what happened when a home buyer tried to back out of a deal because of a poltergeist?
Okay, so this is the case of Stambowski versus Ackley. So, someone by the name of Helen Ackley claimed that her New York home was being haunted by a poltergeist. The reputation was spread after she spoke of her experiences in various press articles, as you do. So later, she goes to sell her house to somebody called Jeffrey Stambowski. She is said to have informed him that the house was haunted, to which he responded that, well, we'll have to call in the Ghostbusters. So the contractor purchased the house. Now, shortly after, for some strange reason, Stambowski tried to withdraw from the sale, claiming that he'd only just found out about the hauntings, which that doesn't stack up. I'm guessing some other reason, perhaps, why he was trying to withdraw from it, because he didn't seem initially put off. So he subsequently took Helen Ackley and her real estate agent to court, claiming fraudulent misrepresentation of the property. Now, initially the trial was dismissed, but after Stambowski appealed, the court ruled that, as a matter of law, the house is haunted. Interestingly, this is not due to ghosts actually being found to be haunting the property, but rather because the reputation of it being haunted would impact the property's value.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and it also found that a buyer had a duty to check the property to purchase. So I guess that would be like you would get a surveyor to check a property, that everything with it. So something along those lines. However, as ghosts cannot be seen, they allowed the contract of the sale to be broken. It's kind of strange, that, really, because you would think that they would be at the point of being like, okay, you should have known, and you wouldn't think it would be. But I guess because I would think it would put the value up, not down.
Well, I tell you what, it depends on what you intend to do with the property, because there is a very famous local case right around here where I
Yeah.
live. The Charlie Lawson grave site
Yeah.
is on private property. Charlie Lawson was a guy who, Christmas Day, he killed himself and his whole family. And
Yeah.
they're all buried on what used to be the family land, which is now private property. A person intent on using the land as a horse ranch from up north, I think they came from Ohio down here. They came down and they bought the property, and they had no idea that this famous thing happened there, and nobody told them. So they don't want people on their property, and they've got people. They said they literally had people sneaking up and looking in their windows at night because of the reputation of the land. And their home was a brand new home. The home that used to be on the property where the Lawsons lived is gone. It was demolished, and they built a new house, and they said people were coming up and looking in our windows, and we had no idea what was happening here.
Yeah, that would be weird.
I don't know if they ended up stuck with or decided to keep the property, but I know they have no trespassing signs up, and there's kind of a little bit of some of the local people are a little bit upset because it's an important piece of history to them, and it ended up kind of nasty because nobody told these people, and I think they should have at least been warned when it's something this that draws this much national attention.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when a house's reputation can void a contract, the law is clearly paying attention to the supernatural, sometimes in surprising ways. Speaking of surprises, our next case names a defendant that you don't see every day. Old
That's right.
Satan himself.
This next one is, I had to put this in.
Can I just say, reading the title of this, it's got to be one of the greatest titles for a legal case ever. And it's the last bit. It's the very last two words of the title of this.
Yeah.
I think
this is
great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what Aidy is talking about is we are going to look into the United States court case of Gerald Mayo versus Satan and his staff.
His staff.
Yeah.
His staff. It just makes it sound like his secretary's there like, wait, what? I'm being dragged into the court. What did I do?
You never know.
Yeah.
Well, this unusual federal court case, the United States, Gerald Mayo versus Satan and his staff, began in 1971 when a Pennsylvania inmate, Gerald Mayo, attempted to file a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania, acting without an attorney. Mayo submitted a handwritten complaint claiming that Satan and his staff had deliberately caused him harm and interfered with his life.
Okay.
In this filing, Mayo alleged that Satan had placed obstacles in his path, causing him misery and violating his constitutional rights.
Please, God, let him have won. Please.
Well, he asked the court for damages and for relief from the supernatural interference that he believed had influenced his circumstances. The case quickly drew attention because of the unusual nature of the defendant, and although courts regularly receive filings from individuals representing themselves, This complaint raised immediate procedural questions. Do you think?
Yeah, it's just how do you get him to turn up in court?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
where'd you send the paperwork to?
that did become questionable, and the presiding judge, Gerald J. Weber, reviewed whether the case could proceed under federal law. One major issue was jurisdiction, whether the federal court could legally assert authority over a supernatural being. Another practical issue involved the requirement that defendants must be formally, notified of a lawsuit through a legal process known as service of process.
Yeah.
Because the complaint named Satan as the defendant, the court noted that there was no clear way to serve legal papers on the accused party.
Strangely enough.
Yeah. In its written opinion, the court ultimately dismissed the lawsuit.
Damn.
Judge Weber noted that the complaint failed to provide sufficient information about how the court could obtain jurisdiction over Satan or how legal documents could be delivered to the defendant. The ruling also pointed out that the court could not determine whether Satan resided within the court's jurisdiction. While the decision was procedural rather than theological, the case became famous in legal circles because the court formally recorded and ruled on the complaint. As a result, United States, Gerald Mayo versus Satan and his staff remains one of the most unusual cases ever documented in the federal court system and is often cited in discussions about unconventional lawsuits and the limits of judicial authority.
That is fantastic.
That is fantastic. You know, the guy tried. He's
He
like,
tried.
I have had enough of this.
But they had to do that because if they'd have found in his favour, then everybody would be suing Satan for everything that went wrong in their life. Who pays up? Who pays up in that situation? The weird thing is that it actually got to court, and the person himself was not referred to some sort of clinic, that it actually got to court. I mean, I'd say that is the ultimate in fairness. I mean, he can't say that, his case wasn't heard. He did get to, to try, but yeah, I don't know how the logistics. I think when he was coming up with the idea, he might have thought of a flaw. I think he needed to identify a person as being one of Satan's staff and then blaming that person so that person could then go to court.
Yeah.
I think just blaming Satan when you can't actually contact him, like you say, you can't really serve the warrant for the court papers, can you? I mean, what do you do with that?
Well, yeah. I tell you what I did once in a similar story. It was Easter one year, and me and my dad were trying to watch some kind of documentary. It was one of those History Channel things that they do on Easter.
Did you serve papers on the Easter Bunny?
No, but here's what I did do. We're sitting there and we're trying to watch this program, and I've got 4 kids in the house at the time, 2 dogs in the house. I think we might have even had birds. Every single TV in the house was on. The kids were screaming, the dogs were barking, everything was going crazy. And my dad says, "This is the devil trying to keep me from hearing this show." So here I stood up in the middle of my living room and I raised my hand and I said, "In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, Satan, I rebuke you. Get out of my house." And everybody went quiet.
Wow.
Everywhere. It was amazing. My dad said, "Oh my God, that worked." I think my kids just thought I finally flipped out.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
The court may have dismissed the devil on procedural grounds, but belief still has real world costs. Next, we're going to hear about an investment made because a medium said a spirit promised oil and the lawsuit that followed.
So yeah, the strangeness of the paranormal in legal circles does continue with the case of Birchill versus, and here's my name for the week, Hermameyer. That's what I'm going
Good
with,
job.
Hermameyer. Yeah, I was typing that up for the notes, and I just thought, yeah, how? I got through all of the other stuff. This was the last one I researched, and it was like, you just got to be kidding me, right? How does this even happen? But there's no Aztecs this week, and I thought I was home and hosed, but no. So, in 1919, a Mrs. Birchill informed a Mr. Hermameyer that her property contained a fortune in oil reserves, and if he invested in her oil company, then he would get a share of the oil revenue. So he put up the vast sum, back then it would have been a vast sum, of $10,000.
That's lunch money today.
Well, yeah, I know, right? Mr. Hermameyer's decision to put up this kind of money was influenced by Mrs. Birchill, who had been told by a medium that a spirit had advised that there was vast reserves of oil on the property. Strangely enough, it turned out that there was no oil found on the property.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I myself would have perhaps used, if I had $10,000, I would have at least used some money to have bought in a geologist to survey the area.
Yeah.
Just to, perhaps gain a better idea of what the exact size of the oil reserves might have been.
Yeah, in some cases, these mediums are as good as proof to people that just believe so solidly in what they say.
A geologist should be, or whoever I'm assuming it's a geologist, would at least be able to tell you where the oil is, how much of it, and what kind of efforts you would need to go in order to be able to extract the oil out of the ground.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Well, I mean, you've got to consider drilling, haven't you? I mean, if it, like how far down it is, how much drilling you would need, how many, if you've got the wells going on and what have you, drawing the oil, how many? I mean, there's all manner of costs that are associated. So, that $10,000 investment may have been way over the odds or may have not been enough. So I would have initially, before I put up any money, would want to know exactly what kind of overheads were going to be required to draw the oil.
Yeah, I'd like to see the breakdowns.
Yeah. There was no oil. So Mr. Hermameyer then sued Mrs. Birchill to get his money back. Mr. Hermameyer stated that in his mind, in an abnormal and irrational condition, when he believed the medium's story about the spirit confirming the presence of the oil reserves was like an excuse as to why he parted with the money.
Right.
Yeah. And because of this, his money should be returned to him. So he's basically like, I guess, got sort of the oil fever.
Yeah.
More I would think than anything else.
Yeah, I think if I were a judge, I would have split the cost between them and say, look, you just because she spun it didn't mean you had to buy into it.
Yeah. Well, the court did disagree with him. Now, the court didn't deny the possibility of spirits communicating with the living. And this is where you get one of these. What's about to come next is what I call just like word salad that legal people come up with. So the court was quoted, "These subjects belong to realms and powers that as yet must generally be classed as purely speculative." You need Dan Aykroyd to read this, actually. Purely speculative and not so established by evidence is cognizable by the law which we are required to administer as to be classed as facts as among proven things. I just remember reading that and going, dear God almighty, couldn't you just put it, well, we don't really know whether these things exist or not, so we can't use it as evidence. Couldn't you just done that?
I don't know what's wrong with the plain language there.
Yeah, that is some wordage. I don't even have the words to describe the wordage. But yeah, I just remember like when I was reading it thinking, you need Dan Aykroyd to come out with that. Because I'm reminded of that bit in Ghostbusters where he addresses Gozer and he just comes out with like the whole cease and desist and return back to whatever plane of existence, that she comes from kind of thing. And I think, is it Bill Murray? Is it Venkman just turns to him and goes, "Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah, good going, Ray."
Well, I'll call Mr. Aykroyd and see if he's busy.
Yeah, it's just episode. That is the line that he would deliver that would actually be entertaining, because you just look at that and you go, dear God, that is wordy. That is definitely a packed sentence, which I like how when I was researching the article, they just summed it up. I guess they translated all of that to, so Mr. Hermanmeyer had chosen to act on his belief in the paranormal, and so he was not the victim of fraud, which again is just a far easier way of saying what was said before. I guess they have to justify their wages, don't they? So they come out with wonderful sentences like that. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that, well, we make the presumption that he didn't do any prep work before departing with the money. And he did all that after departing with the money, after handing the money over. And you say, well, that's your fault. Like, whether or not there is something paranormal there is actually inconsequential. You jumped at the opportunity without doing any due diligence, and so you've no callbacks to get the money. You didn't. I think it would have been a case of fraud had Mrs. Burchell provided forged documents or fake documents to show that a geological survey had been carried out, and it was like all documented and stamped, because then you would then go with that. If somebody just goes, oh yeah, a medium says there's oil here, and then you go, woohoo, let's dig, drill baby drill, and there's nothing there, well, that's not a case of fraud. That's just a case of like you just believing what somebody said. I mean, Mrs. Burchell herself was also like the victim of it too, because she believed that there was oil there.
Yeah, she probably believed it too.
So it was just like a case of, and you can't then blame a psychic medium, because they are saying, well, the spirit told me. And then we kind of get to the point of you can't really bring a spirit into court. So at some point you got to be like, yeah, okay, that should have been your starting point, not the point that you used to part with that kind of money.
Well, acting on spiritual advice can be costly.
It can.
Financially and personally.
Yeah.
Our final case looks at spiritual teaching, health decisions, and a divorce that raised questions about influence and responsibility.
Wow, that's a packed one, isn't it?
A lot packed in there. Yeah, this is the case of Knight versus Knight. The case commonly referred to as Knight versus Knight involved J.Z. Knight, a controversial spiritual teacher who rose to prominence in the 1980s. There was a lot going on in the 1980s. I think we're going to do an episode in the future about 1980s and the paranormal. Well, Knight claimed that she could channel a continent of Lemuria. How you channel a whole continent, I don't know, but this is the claim.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Now, through this claimed channeling, Knight founded here we go with my word of the day, the Ramthas School of Enlightenment in Washington State.
That sounds like something out of Harry Potter.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, this school attracted followers from all around the world who attended seminars and spiritual teachings. Her growing popularity and unconventional claims drew the devoted supporters and skeptical critics wanting to come and see what's going on. The legal dispute arose during Knight's divorce from her husband, Jeff Knight. During the proceedings, Jeff Knight alleged that his wife's spiritual teachings had negatively affected his health decisions. According to court filings, he claimed that he delayed seeking conventional medical treatment for serious illnesses because Knight encouraged him to rely on spiritual healing practices associated with her teachings and the guidance of Ramtha.
Okay.
Yeah. His claims raised questions about whether her influence had caused him harm, bringing unusual issues of religious belief, personal responsibility, and alleged spiritual guidance into the courtroom. As the case moved through the Washington state court system in the early 1990s, it drew media attention because it involved allegations tied to supernatural claims and the practices of a well-known spiritual movement. However, the dispute ultimately remained a civil matter connected to the divorce and related allegations. The court did not rule on the truth of Knight's channeling claims, focusing instead on legal issues surrounding the couple's relationship and the evidence presented. In the aftermath, the case contributed to public scrutiny of Knight and her organization. Though Ramtha's School of Enlightenment continued operating and still attracts followers today, the lawsuit is often cited in discussions about how courts handle cases where religious or supernatural beliefs intersect with claims of personal harm or liability. What say you?
Yeah.
If Jesus says God will heal you, are you going to go to the doctor?
Yeah.
I think Jesus works through the doctor. There's an old joke about...
That's my argument, because a lot of people will argue against that. Yeah. But I've always been of the belief of if we were given the ability to develop medicine using the brains that we were given to develop this stuff.
There's an old joke that my dad told me when I was a kid about a guy and a flood. And he's there, and first the local police come out. Yeah, local police come out, and they say, hey, we're evacuating the area, and we need you to come with us. And the guy says, no, it's all right. God's going to save me. You can go on.
Yeah.
So then they come around, and it's the National Guard in boats. And they say, come on, we need you to get out of here. This land is going underwater, and you're going to die if you don't come with us. He says, no, I'm not going to die. God's going to save me. And he sits there, and the water's getting deeper and deeper, and he's up on top of his roof. And they come by one last time with a helicopter, and they say, sir, you are going to die if you don't come with us. Well, he doesn't come with us, and he ends up dying and going to heaven. Mm-hmm. And he says, God, why didn't you save me? And God said, I sent the police, a boat, and a helicopter. What else was I supposed to do?
Yeah. This is it, though. There's a lot with that. I mean, there's the old sort of saying, God helps those who help themselves.
That's it.
And I do think, there's a reason we've been given these abilities to help ourselves. So I've never understood the logic of...
Be proactive.
Yeah, the logic of ignoring the help that's out there because you believe that you're going to have some kind of one-on-one divine intervention. It's that's already happened. That happened, however you perceive creation. All of those things were put into place already. I think it's a little bit strange to believe in an all-powerful being and acknowledge that being as being responsible for creation, and then completely choosing to ignore part of that creative process, which was our ability, our unique ability on this planet to utilize knowledge and learn and develop and progress at a very rapid rate. I think those are the tools that we were given,
Yes.
I think that is the divine intervention in my view.
I agree. I think if you believe in religion at all, you have to accept the fact that the creator made science a part of it.
Well, yeah, otherwise we wouldn't have the ability to utilize it.
Exactly.
Because it seems almost, dare I say, blasphemous in a way to say that we have been able to break the programming and do things we're not supposed to do. That seems a little bit strange that, an all-powerful being would have allowed that to happen. Yeah, I think there is a lot to be said for that little story you say about the guy in the flood, because that's how it works. That's my personal belief. I think if you don't actually go about trying to help the situation yourself or use what's there, then you are ignoring the help that has been provided. I just don't think you get to have a one-on-one healing session. I don't think that's how it would work. It's a lot to ask.
Yeah. All right then. From bullets fired at ghosts to lawsuits naming Satan, today's cases show the strange places where belief and the law collide. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this legal ghost tour, subscribe and then follow our X account at postsabtghost.com and tell us over there the oddest supernatural legal story you've ever heard about. All of our contact and social media links are on the website at www.postaboutghosts.com, by the way. Until next time, keep your wits about you and your lawyer's number handy. Bye, guys.